So today we are interviewing our friend here. Your name is
David.
David. And we are talking about our course after Babel, and especially about minority languages and language activism. So I would like to ask you to introduce a little bit yourself. Where are you from? How old are you?
I'm 20 years old. I'm from Cologne, Germany. I grew up in Cologne. My dad, however, is Italian, Sicilian. So I have both nationalities, the German and the Italian nationality.
Okay. So do you speak more than one languages? I guess so.
Yeah, I speak German and Italian as my, let's say, mother languages. And
Okay.
English and French.
Okay, I see. But before we were talking about your father, you were telling me that he actually speaks a minority language.
Yeah. I sort of speak it as well.
Okay.
It's Sicilian. It's a dialect of Italian, but some people consider it to be a language in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sicilians are very proud that they have the language. I mean, only they speak it.
Okay. And would you consider it as a language that is dying out?
I don't know. I think in Sicily, still a lot of people are very traditional and speak it. I mean, you don't learn it at school, but I mean, on the street, it's spoken regularly. When I'm
Okay.
there, I speak it as well. I
Yeah.
understand it, so I wouldn't necessarily say that it dies out.
Okay. And would you be a language activist to protect this minority language? Or
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely would think that it's important to protect these languages. I don't know if I would be if I would become a language activist, but I think it's really important to sort of protect these languages because I mean they depict the culture of these people, and the people are very very proud of the language, and I mean they identify with it. So I can see why they would try to.
thank you, Dan.
No
for
worries.
being with us.
Guys,
Hello.
thank you for joining us. So today I would like to interview you about language minorities. We have a course after Babel, maybe you've heard about it. And we're talking about language activism. And yeah, I would just start by asking you where you come from, which languages you speak, and yeah, maybe you can quickly introduce yourselves.
My name is Gede. I'm 22 years old. I'm from Germany and Indonesia. Which language do I speak? German, Indonesian, English, Balinese. I learn Italian at the moment, A1, a bit of Spanish, a bit of French.
And you?
My name is Tullio, I'm 23 years old, I'm Italian. Languages I speak, English, Italian, a bit of French, and the dialect of my place, from Salento.
And my name is Francesco, I'm 22 and I speak English, Italian, Spanish, French and a little bit of my dialect Genoese.
Okay, so now we have heard about all your languages, and yeah, all you three told me that you speak sort of a minority language, either it's a dialect or Balinesian, which is a minority language in Indonesia, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if you or your culture would fear that this language is going to die out, would you be a language activist? Do you think it's important to protect these minority dialects, or what would you do?
Question. No idea.
Do you think it's going to
So,
die
but
out?
only in the case of it is really dying out.
Do you think
Like,
it's going to
for
happen?
in Balinese, like Indonesia has a lot of different islands, and each island has its own language. But in the end, they formed Indonesian as a common language. And Indonesia get taught in the school. Everybody learns Indonesian, but everybody, as soon as they leave the school, around their parents, around their people, speak Balinese. So it's something from the culture, from the mindset. I don't think it will die out. But in case it will die out, I'm a proponent of maintaining at least some of the language.
How would you do that?
How I would do that? Good question. I mean, it depends whether you can teach it in school. I don't think it's sometimes hard to do, you know?
So maybe through education or even through legacies like
But
policies?
it depends how much you are allowed or can do it, because I guess because they have still their own languages, it's also a very dividing factor in a way. Like you say, I'm from Bali, not from Indonesia. So it could be also good in case it fades and then a global Indonesian consciousness arises. So it's a deeper underlying philosophical question.
Thank you so much. Okay.
For my region, I noticed like in my region, my grandparents used to speak the dialect much more than my parents' generation did, and my generation, only a few people actually speak the language. And I see that there is a resurgence a bit of this dialect when they started to do some new communication, like programs on television, or for instance on Facebook and social media. They start sharing content in the dialect, and that is something like peculiar from the town that creates a sense of identity also for the youth. So I see a little bit of resurgence through social media, which could be potentially a threat.
What is the name of the dialect?
Genoese.
Genoese, okay.
Genoese. It's a dialect that originated before the Romans introduced Latin in Liguria.
And do you think, because you just told us that your parents used to, or your grandparents used to speak it more than the youth is doing now, so do you think the dialect is at the potential to die out at some point?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is, especially in daily life. It's almost impossible to find, if not in the bars where people from the old generations meet and gather. And there are a few attempts to maintain it, as I said, through television, local television, social media.
Yeah. And you would promote that as well? You think it's important?
Yeah, I would, because it's also a very funny language.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and you?
I'm also from Italy, but I have to say, compared to what Francesco says, the situation is a bit different, because our dialect is still a lot used as well among the young people. We use it kind of as a slang.
What dialect is it? Sorry, could you repeat the name?
It's called Salentino.
Salentino.
Yes,
thank
because the region is called Salento. This particular dialect comes from another language, what has been recognized as a language. It's called Greco, and it's a mixture between this dialect from Salento and the Greek, ancient Greek language. There are some songs, there are some poems which are today studied at school, but unfortunately this language has disappeared, and it's very sad. On the other hand, the dialect Salentino is still, as I said, pretty much used, and I don't think it's gonna disappear. However, there is, like, I remember when I was young, my mother wouldn't like that I was speaking this language, because it kind of sound a weird way of speaking Italian. With a lot of grammatical mistakes. So, but I don't think it's going to disappear, because I see, especially in the young people, there are a lot of people that speak it.
But would you guys consider yourselves as language activists? So would you say that maintaining dialects and languages is something you would actually fight for and participate in maintaining it, or is it something you say, okay, we just you go with the time and maybe that's just what's happening?
No, I think even if some languages are not spoken anymore, it's still a form of cultural expression, which is very important, I think. And for example, the way in which you can express some things in one language or one dialect, sometimes it's impossible to translate them properly. You know, you need that language, you know what I mean, to express this feel. So I think education for sure plays an important role in this, but not only. I mean, people would also have to be aware of the fact that these languages are slowly disappearing. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
We got it.